what's going on. So phase one touches, well, it doesn't touch a lot of this, but those who are prepared to understand and know those things will be prepared to understand phase one. And as well, it comes down a lot to the legal system, how it's basically mirroring a spiritual enslavement system, covering knowledge and hiding the truth under a series of wild perceptual systems, illusions, through the language and etymology, and just like outlining a world which is not really what's going on here. For instance, the stuff that they teach us and tell us in the background, they specifically tell their people, this is the lie that we tell everyone. It's not like, well, we think this is what it is, but we're really don't know. It's like, this is the lie that we tell other people. That's how it works. And so, everybody can kind of tell what's going on. You don't have to believe me just because. Don't believe anything I say.
Oh no, you're right on the money, baby. Transformation of spirit, phenomenon, progress.
So it goes kind of from there into the corruption system, how it's been, it's prevailed since very early on, and why that is based in time and stuff like that, consciousness. But phase one goes from there to the corruption, the exposure of corruption, the education, judicial, monetary, pharmaceutical, even agricultural, and like the food industry, and environmental industry, archaeological, scientific, all this stuff, all these industries, these groups, basically coveting knowledge and telling lies to people. And from there, that goes into science and technology as far as where we're actually at in regards to celebrity cloning, because this ties into the basic secret operations. Well, you can kind of go like MK Ultra, Artichoke and Bluebird, and Project Monarch, and into Mockingbird. MK Ultra is drugging trauma-based mind control, as far as really not even trauma-based mind control, but part of that, and then part the kind of exploration of the consciousness of the mind, the subconsciousness of these other areas of existence. And Monarch is actually trauma-based mind control, comes from these Monarch bloodline families, these elite bloodlines. And Artichoke, and I think Bluebird was where MK Ultra, they picked up off of MK Ultra, because when something gets closed down, they just change names. So people figure out years later, oh, MK Ultra's going on. Now they go back and say, oh, it's closed in the 70s, but rather they just changed the name and went to something else. And so then Mockingbird is how to control the population through media influence, and how media influence through celebrities and key figures can control basically the population, the minds of people, to control ultimately the big what is the future, to control what's going to happen, because people program the future, program the collective mind, program this field of energy around the earth to guide this whole environment, this whole society into where we're going and what's going on. And they knew that and knew it, and that's where all this ties in. I'll just, give them benefit of the doubt. Part of this is because without some type of control system, everybody just like fights each other, because we're all different species, honestly. We're all different beings. That's how it works. And everyone doesn't really have a collective system for communication and for integration. So at that point, where we would go is like directly into a brick wall as a species. And as well as giving them a big benefit of the doubt, because there's ways that can be could have been used to integrate this, however, they've been avoided because of these secret aspects of control, mind control, and basic power struggles. And so from there into the celebrity cloning ideas of this, the aspect, and how that relates to these underground bases and these secret projects, these unacknowledged special access programs. And that's basically the first of it. But the idea of me bringing this is that it hinges on the exposure of the corruption, as well as the question of advanced technology and cosmic intelligences. That's basically the corruption, advanced technology, cosmic intelligence. And I don't want to say UFO and aliens, because technically, if you don't know what you're talking about, you could be looking directly at an agenda, by talking about those issues. And so, which is the mind control agenda. So, make up your own mind about these things. And the whole idea behind that agenda is so you don't make up your own mind, you just believe what somebody tells you. And so, that's a spiritual enslavement. And it's reality entrainment. And so those three are basically the basics of the first one. Just kind of went off completely. I haven't even started a list yet, but we'll see where this goes. It's kind of interesting.
It is.
And then phase 2 is already advanced technology. That's where it is. And I kind of want to talk about the reality of the soul and electromagnetics and electrogravitics and the basically hidden technologies. And that's actually right that's phase 2. How because basically you look at it like phase 1 corruption, celebrity claim, kind of key issues on the mind control, trauma-based mind control, this mass mind control system, and then you look at and that you think every level is going to blow somebody's mind, everybody's minds. That's the truth. Is we've been in a society where it's been hidden, so that's the nature of what's going to go on and what is going on. If you look at phase 2, it's the same thing. Only each one is modeled differently, so this one's not going to be about the corruption. It's about how far the technology goes, and it will blow your mind.
That's right.
But it's also not just like they made up some stuff or invented some technology that doesn't exist. Like this shows us who we are. Each layer shows us history and society, all the way to phase 3 where it leads into the origins of humanity and the universe, the cosmic intelligence, and what it all really means. And it wraps up and ties together.
I'm a cheerleader.
I'm going to tell you it's possible. The advanced technology, I believe. Basically how electrogravitics work,
I have a personal
how these scalar mind control systems work, how energy can be transferred from a transmitter to a receiver and power a city in the same way. That'd be kind of very high powered, but in the same way, energy can come from a transmitter to a mind and influence or modulate the perceptions, thoughts that are occurring in somebody's mind or emitting. And so it's all about waves. It's all about, honestly, Tesla said it's all about frequency, energy, and vibration. I think that's the order. I usually mix up orders of things. And so basically, it's all about waves. This is like a hard one as well. I'm running a post on this too. I think I mentioned the same post before about how consciousness is kind of like a wave function. It's a process or it's kind of like a collective illusion. Okay, you have an ocean. And the ocean has a swell or a wave. I mean, a wave is different because it picks it up, doesn't pick it up, but a swell, which is a wave, basically, which is a sine wave, that kind of wave. They both do it, but the other wave doesn't crash, so it has a different format, different function. And so it's not like a scalar wave, how they crash. Well, a wave in water crashes against to carry the water with it and throw it. A scalar wave makes vibrations, but then when they clap or crash together, it actually throws energy. It's the same concept. And so, but you have an ocean, flat line of water. Think of one of those testing facilities where they have like these wave pools and all types of stuff like that. Really cool stuff. And you have a clear tank or whatever, and you have the wave going across the water. Now, what is in motion? No motion. Cows doing aerobics. What is in motion from A to B? Don't say the water, because that's not. I mean, you put dye and you put bobbers or whatever, floaters, and they stay in the same spot. They just go up and down. They don't go from A to B. They don't go horizontal. There's no horizontal motion there. And the water molecules are basically the same thing. They just go up and down. While the wave itself, in between compressions, basically, the wave of energy is what is moving from side to side. So now, is energy material? Does it have mass? It has force, but it doesn't have mass. Okay, so that there's nothing moving. Nothing's actually happening. There's an interrelation between the molecules, which we are perceiving as a unified force that moves throughout. So in the same way, consciousness is a collection of these forces from a bunch of, like an innumerable amount of individual units, from neurons to cells to energy system charges, basically charge displacements. And the end result, the collective result of all these differences, reorganize into a contrast in motion in an abstract plane, relative but abstract to the layer of the, in this case, neurochemistry or electromagnetic plane or medium that all this is happening. And through that, we perceive change. That change that we perceive, just like the wave in water that doesn't actually exist, well, that's consciousness. It's an immaterial, perceptual, subjective experience of what is taking place. In other words, you need a conscious observer aspect in order to determine that wave actually moving. Say you have a computer system, okay, where you can detect numbers are increasing and decreasing values when so energy is moving from here to there, but you need a person to look at that and say, oh, that's a wave, okay, and to actually perceive it. You can have a system call it that, but it's not going to know what's going on. So in the same way, consciousness, you need a soul, if you will, in the brain, in the body, to have all these systems going on, because the same thing is like a wave for each firing neuron, each cell, each neurochemical process, okay, and each neurochemical process of these peptides and neurochemicals, I can't think of the proper word for them, there's thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions of them at each time. Each time there's a firing, a thought, or release from the synapses across the gap to other synapses, or from the dendrites to the synapses. I'm a little rusty on my neurochemistry biology. That's biology. And it's biology 101. Was that a 102 or was it like 210 or something? 2020. And so there's nothing about any of this that is just a ball bumps into another ball and you're like, I haven't thought. It's just a wave of crashing into foam, rising and collecting and sizzling back down, and the process repeats itself. That happens thousands of times, if not thousands of times a second, and each one of those collecting into a collective singular experience. That's us going up. The room, a tree, wind, okay? It's all stimuli dependent until this is an interesting connection with neurology and psychology, stimuli dependent, and what happens when you close the stimuli out and you move into a subjective state where only you are experiencing what subjective stimuli you are also creating. You have feedback loop. That's when you go into another environment that is basically, it's like you're in a virtual environment in your mind, and in that virtual environment that's not actually connected to the world. Like imagine you shut off the internet, and now you're literally just inside the algorithm, just messing around in a virtual simulator. Okay, well that weird stuff begins to happen at that point. You can basically create anything. You kind of do these experiments inside your mind, and the idea is once you do those experiments, you're actually connecting to a world that exists, abstract or independent of this world, yet the experiments can coincide, where you can find the true reality in your mind, even though they're two different worlds, and it makes it look like they are actually the same world. And the same with a superpowered computer system, superpowered, there are supercomputer systems where they can determine projected realities, holographic simulations based upon artificial neurons, all the way down to you get basically artificial neurochemistry. And when they run those, they can basically initiate changes in the real world. Very strange how that works. That's kind of like the bottom of phase 2, because once you do that, then you get into phase 3. Where what is this world? How has this technology influenced this world? What is really going on? And it begins to go with getting the last parts were crazy. Well, I'm telling you, phase 3 is off the charts. There's no way of describing it. And it's pretty much how they work it down to an individual person into like an awakening, where they break all these things down. That's basically like the actual event of that. That's the information that they're in. And so after phase 2, where you have that, so consciousness as a wave function, as a kind of illusory perceptual system. It's not an illusion, but it's not solid. It's transient by definition, by nature. And from there we derive a bunch of information, or at least I can't think of the word right now. Basically, not facts, but parameters, if you will. Derived parameters about what is possible and what is likely to be happening in this situation where we really don't have the far ends of time, the far ends of space to determine where we are in, who we are, what we are, what happened for our ago. We have to tie all this together to determine what's possible and therefore what's likely and probable. And that also leads directly into causality, causal reference, and how we're kind of already in a feedback loop because we're in a cut-off bubble of reality that's just our species, our civilization, and we are creating what is happening on a collective scale. And the idea is once you tap that, just like an individual tapping that, you can control your existence in a much higher degree, a much different fashion, and a much more expanded or a different scale, okay? And so when our collective mind, our society understands that and taps into that, everything changes from there. That's the basic idea behind all of it. But we're not really there yet because we're kind of going to work out the kinks. But you can also kind of work them out on the way. It's just really, really intense to do that. And so with that advanced technology, the electrogravitics, the electromagnetics, the soul, the mind link, the scalar technology, free energy, what's called free energy, into replication tech, into quarter tech, into time tech, where you can basically lens time in what we call space, and it's all relative to consciousness, even space and distance itself. And basically, the easiest way to get over that hurdle, and this is what they do in the bases a lot, like, so come up with something crazy. This is in a Marvel, comic book where they invented, just come up with something. So they can do that. That's what I say. They're like, we can do that. We did that long ago. Try again. And you can't come up with something that they didn't already do. They didn't already figure out. It's really weird, but that's what it is. Just because the universe is complex, but as well as consciousness dependent. So if you can imagine it, that's the whole point. Why wouldn't it be able to, someone be able to bring that into reality? Your mind is actually imagining something in reality. That's the point. What you imagine is connected to something that exists. How else would you be able to imagine it if the programming, in a way, you're running here is connected to and can only be what is enabled and allowed out here? And in order to create that, sure, you might not be in the direct environment where that is possible. You might have to change, manipulate magnetic fields, things like that, so change the environment. But if you can imagine it, why couldn't there be an environment somewhere, some way that could enable that? And then why couldn't you enable that in this environment using more complicated technology? Basically, it's really not too complicated. All the computer systems to guide all these systems, to control the magnetic fields, to make sure stuff goes right, and just like rip apart. That's complicated. Because everything has to be monitored and fed back into itself. Otherwise, things kind of go haywire. And a lot of it is operated through mind. And so people have to be trained in order to handle these systems. Otherwise, it's just the wildest thing. It's like, I don't know, if you had your soul right here, and you can do anything yourself, you just fly anywhere, go anywhere, see anything. You're not careful, you're gonna end up flying into the sun or something. That's not a bad thing. Like, we're careful, it's a bad thing, but this is a whole bunch of pathological stuff coming out here about the system, the universe. And so then I'll just skip the rest of the advanced technology and the connection to that, because basically these, when you see how these things are possible, okay, why, what is the universe, what are we doing here, what is really going on? And that's basically phase 3. It's all about that. So what really happened with these projects? What did they influence? What did they change about this reality? What did they affect? Who are we? What are the origins of humanity? What is the universe? What is the origins? What are the origins of the universe? What is the format? And basically, it goes from there, from how it all works. And I hope that leads into cosmic intelligence, the differentiation between species, and a whole bunch of stuff that really I don't even need to talk about here, because we've just begun phase 1. Not just, but within the last year or so.
Okay. All right. So you guys are getting a feel for how this works, and we're 34 minutes and 12 seconds into a video that is an hour 12 and 32 seconds. So this is the paper that came out of session 2. And I gotta grab my other piece again, because I will need it, just for an illustration. All right. So I have to go back and remember where I started. And something funny I want to say is I really wish and I want to manifest my shorthand skills again. Because, in high school, I had 3 years of shorthand at Lutheran North, Greg's shorthand, and I loved it. Now, of course, I knew I really wasn't going to be a secretary, so when I became a hairdresser, I think that my mind went a different way with my art. But when I was sitting in the chair off camera is when this first piece of paper happened. So let me put the screen on myself And then I'll be able to show you guys my scribbly. I guess if it was shorthand, you wouldn't be able to read it either, would you? Oh no. Why is this saying mute? I want that to unmute. Hopefully you guys hear me either way. We'll see later. What about this? You know, let me get bigger. What's going on? Oh, duh. Gotta stop the share. There I am. Okay. So, here's my first piece of paper. You can see the amount of writing. I know you can't. Oh, there. That's nice. Okay. So, that's the first piece of paper, and I'll clean all these up. And of course, they get filtered in. But we're just going to go over a few things. And then what I'll do is I'll check them off as I go. Okay, so I think we can all agree that there has been some heavy-duty indoctrinational programs. So I'm going to put a line there. And this is the lie we tell other people. Now, I did a Sophia's Emporium show about there's 4 categories of what you know and what you believe you know and stuff like that. So at this point, I'm going to make an arrow and tell myself to get that video footage from when we cover that, and then that way, all I have to do is edit that clip into the movie that comes out at the end of this. Now, let's go over phase 1 again that I've talked about, because here again, we're in the order. We've got corruption at every level. So we're talking about within the educational system. We're talking about the financial system. We're talking about agricultural and food stuff. And we've all heard the horrendous tales, even at the lowest level. Like, let's say you're really innocent. You know that your food has been genetically modified. You know that some foods have been found to have plastics and things that your body cannot digest. Now, on the other end of this, you have to be pretty far down the rabbit hole as far as disclosure. And here again, the esoteric reasons behind why they've been doing blood sacrifices, even after the story that all the Christians base their faith on, that, you know, after Jesus shed his blood for our sinful natures, that there wasn't going to be any more blood sacrifices, or putting your kid on a rock and cutting his heart out, or throwing a virgin in a volcano. But you see, that's why we've had war all this time. They had to keep the blood sacrifice up. Just because Christ went through a sacrifice does not mean that the, let's say, the cabal influence, or whatever you want to call it, you know, the tip of the pyramid, whatever control system you want to call that. Okay. So every level, right? We've got environmental, trying to read my scribble, see. We've got industrial, of course. And the biggest thing here is the coveting of knowledge. So when you talk about the secret societies, or you talk about what they call the Illuminati, which Aug does want you all to know that normal, regular people that are oppressive, see, they're the Illuminati, and their dumbasses don't even know, because the first thing they'll say is, well, I don't participate in any kind of metaphysical or spiritual activities. It's like, hey, Dopey Stoner, you remember the idea, the old story about, you know, the angel on the shoulder and the devil on the shoulder and the cartoons? Well, for real, like we've also talked about it, everyone comes here with a guardian angel and also a demon or a daemon. So when you think that you don't play with the wild side, let me tell you, those are the people that they say are awake with their eyes closed. All right. And you know, this whole thing about coveting knowledge. I mean, come on, for real. The reason that, you know, I've been through what I've been through and what I've seen Elvis go through and countless other people is that these greedy son of a bitches want your intellectual property. And not only do they want your intellectual property, oh, no. They want your energetic currency. Now, surely in this world, the easiest way to do that to somebody is through money. But we're talking about parasites and psychic vampires and the looshing of energy. So this is multidimensional, as you see. It's not just one simple thing, right? So this whole cloning thing, man, that gets down into a whole creepy deepy thing. But I want to take you back farther than what you can imagine. So when we go back to the RH negative, see, then you get into the story about the off-planet influences that manipulated human DNA or that did what they call cloning, you see. Like me, I used to just think of cloning like something out of a scary movie where they grab you up like Stepford Wives, you see, and they come get you in the middle of the night, and when you come back the next day, they wiped your brain, but you look perfect, and you behave, and you follow orders. You know, I just figured they did a little zappity and kicked up a clone. Suz didn't have the whole picture, but you see, it didn't shatter my reality because I already had a working concept. And the working concept comes through a lifetime of experience in dealing with what we consider other humans. All right. Back to these programs. Bunch of shit. Okay, so we got MK Ultra. Trauma-based mind control and expansions. I don't know, EXP, if it's expansion or expense or experience of conscious existence. Now, for real, we were all affected by the MK Ultra program. Most people still aren't ready to deal with that. And a lot of the trauma surrounding people's ability to have ears to hear and eyes to see. They can't deal with the Elvis thing that goes all back to the MK Ultra. So does the cloning. For those of you that don't know, Elvis had a triplet. Now any diehard Elvis fan knows that and knows that allegedly Jesse died at birth. Well, come to find out he didn't. And Elvis also has a triplet. Now, was Gladys super fertile Myrtle, or were the programs already ongoing? Because most people say, oh, you know, the programs started after World War II. But as you expand that idea out, you understand that the programs have gone on for time immemorial. Is that the way they say it? It's been going on since the go. And there's experts that can pinpoint that place for us, but that's not my forte or my niche. Okay. Project Artichoke and Project Bluebird. Right. That's what they named him after. They had to act like, they're going to whitewash MK Ultra out of history. Well, guess what? You're getting this from the prophetic destiny of Missouri. And if you go 10 minutes down the street to the Westlake Landfill project, where the, radioactive and, not the big bad nuclear waste, just the medium stuff. I mean, really, people are having cancers and, what do you call it, when something malforms, million different problems. The air, the soil, the water is all contaminated. And it's about a mile away from the Missouri River. And of course, that's why the dear people from the Children of the Kingdom were defending Standing Rock and taking that stand, because you see, where I live here, all the tributaries and all the rivers and all the streams meet into the Missouri River. And oh yeah, don't ever forget, during the Standing Rock thing at the end, there was that oil spill that happened in what they call the Little Missouri River. And I'm going to, in my mind, believe that that is where the Missouri River starts, and it's small. And I know it was right upstream from the camps at Standing Rock and North Dakota and all that. Okay. Shame, shame, shame. But all is wax on, wax off. You see what I'm saying? That's why we really are ourselves from the future, come back to this eternal now to set things right, because we will survive. No one, no being, no computer can stand next to God and say, you know what? I'm better than you are, and I'm bigger and badder and more omnipotent and present than you. No, you're not. Okay. I have a God of love. Project Mockingbird. Control the population. And this is where the media comes in. Now, here's the good news. I have it on very high authority that as this miracle unfolds in front of your very eyes, the 90% of the media that is not true, they'll be gone. I'm one of the 10% that's true. You know how cool that is for me? I mean, I had the faith to come online and to bare my soul and to share my journey and yakety yak and go through getting harassed and tormented and ripped off and slandered and libeled, and even had some dark magic try to be worked on me, some boogie bullshit, which doesn't work. But yeah, media, we're gonna have a new form of it, and of course I'm a pioneer with my variety shows. You see, it's a whole new format that no one can compute. No one can say what I'm going to do before I do it. That's intellectual property, and that's creative control. Okay, last but not least, Project Monarch, Elite Bloodlines. And oh my goodness, I can do a whole video on this for my own family alone. So, on one of these papers, and I don't even need the paper to tell it to you because it's my own flipping life, but here's what's really a trip. So, believe it or not, okay, my bloodline is nice and pure. So let me just draw that little line, okay? Now, on the offshoots of it, on my family's side and on my ex's side, and I call him Dopey. So I'm just going to write that down, okay? On Dopey's side of the family, see, he's a prat. Now, I've been given shit for being a prat because, believe it or not, the actual meaning behind that family name is trickster. So say, when I first was witnessing about Elvis being true, this guy comes on and he says, yeah, your last name says it all. Now, I don't respond to any of those people because they're probably not even really people. We talked about on this other page about, well, maybe I didn't. Maybe I skipped over different kinds of beings, but you have, of course, originals, you have spiritual human beings, you have automatons, which are human beings that are being so drained that they are this close to losing their soul and they're on automatic. You have clones, and you have like lower matrix beings that look human, but they're all shadow beings. I mean, they're tangible, you can touch them and stuff. But when the gig's up, they got nowhere to go. And that's a whole other story. But let's go back to Pratt. So the meaning of the name Pratt is trickster. And my ex-Dopey, his mom's maiden name is Collins. And Collins is an offshoot of the Rothschilds. And the Collins name is very connected in the Catholic Church, in the category of the ones that really were doing naughty little satanic rituals to keep the control grid up. Now, this is mind-blowing to me because Dopey doesn't really have a very high intelligence, but, you know, good-looking man, nice enough. When I love, I truly love. So we had a family together. I bore 3 children with him, and all of them are affected by the parasite. And I just had the revelation of that story today too, but we're already almost into our 3rd hour, so we're not going there tonight. I'm going to try to wrap this up and chill. Okay, so that's who I had my kids with. I think of the word handler now that I know what's up. When I was young, I thought of him as a benevolent jailer that would keep me in line and validate me as a regular person. And from growing up in such a dark, dreary household with such unattractive parents, if you're looking at their physical outsides. Now, my dad was beautiful inside, but my mom was a trans-dimensional medium. So she never had a happy day. And she was definitely majorly controlled. Now, why is that? Well, because her father, my grandfather, Addison V. Mitchell, was the managing editor of the Custer Combat Tier, an offshoot of the Stars and Stripes, giving the news about World War II. So my grandpa wrote this secret journal, see, and I never knew about it until a few years ago when Joe retrieved it from my dad's house before it all caved in. my grandma always kept it at a bank in a vault because she worked for Mercantile Bank. And when my mom was little, she started drawing on some of those papers. So Graham scooped them up and kept them safe, but she never told me about them. See, that's because if you go back to who my grandpa was and is, because he's still here, all of our lineages are right here with us in this eternal moment, you see, all coming into this one being. And then that's happening to you guys too, so keep that in mind. But anyhow, I just kind of lost my track on that line, so it's time to leave that one. Covered the Pratts. Now, let's find the Rothschilds on my maternal side. So, my mom was a Mitchell, and something that's very interesting, and so now I have to go back to Elvis for a minute. When I talk about tags, the confirmed spirit of a phenomenon progress, let me give you an example. My mom's middle name, she didn't have one. She used the letter V. Now, my grandfather, Addison V. Mitchell, his name was Vernon. And that's Elvis's dad. My grandpa told a story about the Mitchell curse in his journal. And that curse was represented by the name Vernon, or the lack thereof. And if you go back and you think about it, like let's say when they decide that somebody's a serial killer or a murderer or somebody that they put out there and say this is the one, they always have the three names, remember? So back in the day, and this would be the mid-1800s, because we're looking at my grandpa's, all the way back to my grandpa's grandpa. All right, that the curse had to do something with the name, and that's why some of them only took the initial, because they thought they could hide from it. And I really don't know any more than that because I have to go by what was written in the journal. And now, let's get back to the Rothschild thing so I don't drift off. My grandma, who was my lifelong companion and the person that kept me safe, this woman affected by the MK Ultra program so terribly that she couldn't even speak of the man that she loved, and she never loved another man. I'm sure those men in black came to her in 1951 and said, look, Hazel, you better forget about all this and stick your head in a can of beer, because you don't want anything to happen to your daughter, do you? That's how the program works. So, my grandma, Hazel, had a sister named Edna that looks just like my daughter, Lauren, who looks nothing at all like the other two kids, Chelsea and Ian. Lauren has her own look. Big ass head. See, and I've got this oval face. So the other two kids have an oval face. Anyhow, and it was beautiful. And maybe you guys have seen the picture where I show my kin when they're kids in the country, and Edna's holding a bear cup. This woman, she was strong, and my grandmother was strong too. So anyhow, Edna married Charles Bauer, and Uncle Charlie was an admiral in the Navy, very high up, 3rd degree Mason. And that's where I got the book from, that I use in my videos. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's got the Constitution, it's got the Bill of Rights, and it was put out by the 33-degree Scottish Masons, Scottish Order, the head poobah, you know, the whole thing. So anyhow, Uncle Charlie the Mason. The Bauer name is directly related to Rothschilds. So you can see how what I'm saying to you here in English is, even though I would be in a bloodline where you could connect a lot of crazy shit, you see, neither one of these are directly blood related, but they did affect my blood. Keep that in mind with everything that you discover about yourself, and let it go. Because like I've said before too, and I've witnessed to this, even if you're born to a coven of witches in the biggest, dirtiest, bloodiest Illuminati family you can imagine, you have the free will to cast that off. If you're still here and you're alive and you're connected, we are at a time now that things like this were never possible. You are living in the days. I feel great about that. I knew my whole life it was coming. And see, that erases all the trauma from the program, like the bad dreams about me in the labyrinth, you know. And Aug talked about the labyrinths today, and I totally got that too, but we'll tackle that in part 2. So that's my little look at me and the Rothschilds. Okay. What about that? Good, nothing. All right. We went over that, we went over that, we went over that. This is where we started. I'm just looking again. Okay, so Aug covered phase 1 with you, and that's where we started. That's where I started tagging things. Phase 2, advanced technology, reality of soul, magnetics, and electrogravitics. So that'd be gravity, you know, electrical gravity devices, I guess would be another way to say it. But the thing I wanted to talk about in this is, first off, you know, we've been told we live in a nuclear universe, and that's why they use nuclear warfare to terrify us and, you know, threaten us with extinction over and over. Back to the Atlantis nuclear explosion, you know, smashing atoms around and shit. But really, our universe is electromagnetic, and that must be why he talked about that, because I've heard tale of that, and I do believe it to be true. And in my experience, I'm going to say that feels very synchronistic and familiar. But here's number 2 that I want to tag: the reality of the soul. So believe it or not, there's an interview out there with Courtney Brown that goes back to 1996. I believe it's Art Bell that interviewed him. And all the way back in 1996, Courtney knew, he saw the vision, he remote viewed it his own self, that the day would come when he would find the exact way to prove the existence of the soul, and that it is a tangible thing. So going back to the soul, keep in mind, this is your energetic currency, and it's a tangible thing. It's more real than gold or money. And that's why they're mining the planet, harvesting the humans, and creepy. But you know what? I feel much better knowing than not knowing. All right. I I already mentioned I wish I still had my shorthand skills and then I wouldn't have to read my doctor writing. Where are we going? I promise you it's going to be awesome. I used to always say that it's a blasphemy to intentionally set out to share someone's reality. I mean, it's kind of like an ego screw, you know. But like Aug talks about, some people are going too slow. And there's a bunch of us that are going this fast. And that goes back to the 100 monkey phenomenon. And that kicked up at the end of 2015. And Aug said this has been going on a little more than a year. So here again, another confirmation of spirit. And see, you needed a girl like me that had only been online 33 months. So I saw the changes and I know that I remote influenced them in some way as well. And that's why the haters like our mutual friend, Aug and my mutual friend Z, who we really do want to help and extend a lot of compassion to. He's all pissed off wanting to know who I am and how I do what I do. And, you know, it really kind of bothered him that I, you know, came into his life when I did. Dude came into my life when he did. Don't get it twisted. And you know, what really sucks about that, and I will say this, I have had a lot of very meaningful relationships, long-term relationships. And that's another piece of paper that I'll do tomorrow. All the people that, even though they love me, I held that mirror up, and they started to resent me. And then one day, the stressor came, you know, the trigger, the thing that shattered their reality. And they walked away from the relationship. See, so I've always known, like say from the hair shop, that everybody would leave me. It wouldn't be the other way around. And I would have to love them and let them go. No different than my own daughter. And when we reveal more about who I believe myself to be, my daughter, when she was taken at the shift in 2012 and puppeted and possessed and came into her role, she told me to take the hole that she ripped out of me and fill it up with my own ego. That's what Mel and Baby accused me of. That's what people that really didn't understand why I keep telling my story. Because see, nobody should give a shit about me. I'm not famous. Nobody knows me. I'm not a big whoop-de-doo. I didn't go to the party. I didn't suck ass. Whatever. All right. So, this whole shattering reality stuff. Wingmakers talks about cracking the egg from the inside. And we will go back and I'll tell you the story about the chicken and the egg too. And about the choices that you make when you decide which one came first. Ways to integrate and avoid power struggles. You know how I do it? Is I just disconnect. So, like, say when somebody attacks me, I release them in love. And I don't talk to them anymore. Not being a bitch, not to be ignorant. To put myself first, and that way I can love everybody else unconditionally. First, know thyself. First, do no harm. And that is the lifetime of my experience. That page is done. Oh my goodness. I never expected this much. All right. My experience of creating reality. Go back to the 3 categories. That would be the all-knowing, the organic matrix, and the matrix. All right? And here's how I see it. You know that Bible verse about in the Father's house, in the Father's mansion, there are many rooms. Well, of course, each of us are individuals, and how we create our room in the mansion. Now, let's say somebody creates their room at the top, let's say on the 3rd floor, and they look out and they see the kingdom. You gotta realize that maybe someone with limited vision, but with a true heart, would create a magnificent room on the lower level. And there's no judgment in that. Where we leave off here, we pick up in our ascended form, whether we are in physicality or not. There's no sitting around on a cloud playing a harp being bored. We're going to keep working. And when you have worthwhile work and you're in service to the greater good, that's what you live for. Okay. I've had 3 different people say to me in their cryptic little language bullshit that they didn't know what I was going to do, but I was going to do something to undo the world as we know it. And that's what I've been doing. Remote viewing and remote influencing. And not falling into anybody's box. And of course, we know that when we're creators, you have to destruct in order to create. And that's why, like Aug says, throughout your age-appropriate learning, you have choices. And depending on what choice you make, you branch off. And there's these other realities, you see. So, I'm doing it lovingly, honestly, truthfully, with the 6 heart virtues and my heart brain at the forefront of the experience. I am Sophia. I am wisdom. And so are you guys. You have to know who and what you are, and you have to speak it. All right. So, we got our Dan Winter drawing, and you see, since I stay right here, in the way I've survived, I've always known how to be still in the center of the swirling chaos. So I become very quiet and still and let the shit fly all around. If you've got these waves going on, and I stand still, and you learn to do what Dan Winters talks about, which is, you know, he talks about the 2 pine cones kissing and the vortex and the thingamajig and so on and so forth. I'm not an engineer, but when you are still within yourself, the waves don't knock you on your ass because the force is different than mass. And we all have mass too, and that's a whole other story. Mass is eternal, you can't destroy it. Okay. This piece of paper right here. My whole life, having these premonitions and nightmares and dreams. I thought by the time I was 42 that we'd already be in rapture and revelations, and that my daughter wouldn't get to grow up and see adulthood and have her own children. I mean, that's how affected I was by the MK Ultra program, by the 1962 Baby Tooth survey, by the burn at the hands of my mother, where they must have done some pretty good work to get me to not be scarred. I mean, a lot of things. I had so much trauma before the age of 7. I should have been fragmented so badly that you couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. But that divine creator made himself known, herself, himself, itself, known to me at the age of 3. So, my true parents, I'm not talking about Barb and Larry, I'm talking about this divine creator, always had me. And then we go back to the footprints poster. I wasn't alone. I've been carried the whole flippin' time. I carry my own weight too. You know, I'm responsible, but I'm grateful. Okay. So anyhow, what if the reality of this is that this whole timeline of human experience and memory, you know, has been what we think of as that time in the Bible where there's wars and rumors of wars, and you know, the demons are let out of the pit, and there's hell on earth, and Lucifer runs the show, and yakety yak. Now, here's what I'm thinking. It's where we're at right now, and we came into it in the last year, like Aug said. Lucifer is no longer in charge, and these old systems are fallen. So remember that wave we talked about earlier? We're experiencing all that shit that comes behind it, you see. And what we do steers it. So less damage is done. That is what our group is doing. Okay? And in doing that, we're cracking the egg from the inside. And you know, if you crack an egg from the outside, well, it would have been that chicken, which is really a runny yolk. See, it doesn't even have a chance at life. So when you crack the egg from the inside, a live being comes out, usually a chicken or whatever animal you're talking about. And even though there is no time, because we got these quantum computers that go back to the beginning of time, and have our original blueprint. Okay. That's that heaven on earth. And that's why I do believe we're going to have heaven on earth. And when Chelsea executed the ritual that she did, along with her creepy gold camp husband, who, you know, if you look up that fancy name on that ancestry thing, you know, it lets you know if you're a noble or a peasant or a trickster or whatever. You know, it's amazing they don't have any information on the name Gold Camp. Are you fucking kidding me? Nah. Especially when they're like the big whoop-de-doo family in the town over, and then this town is controlled by it. No coincidences, guys. But anyhow, there's no time, 1,000 years heaven on earth. And then a new heaven and earth is created. Wingmaker says that's 2080. Or no, 2060. But see, if our dumbasses take that long, 2060, well, everybody is going to be an AI, manipulated, chipped, pieced and parted entity that's not a human soul. So, I promise you it's coming before that. And 2017 is the year to prepare. And no matter what happens, if you can be still in that swirling chaos, you're going to be cool. Don't even sweat it. And they say August is a pivotal month. So we've got the blood moon in August, and I can tell you this. August blood moon is potent. That's when sacred stone manifested in the garden of the big yellow house. We're almost done. 3 more. Oh, good. I don't even have to worry about that piece of paper. We already talked about that. That's awesome. I already told you. Since 1996, or maybe I didn't. I can't remember. Since 1996, Courtney Brown. 21 years, dude. 3 cycles of 7. I mean, how Steiner can you get, right? But for real, the soul is tangible. You can measure it. And I've been participating in that experiment. Like I said, Steiner knew. And I knew the responsibility that I undertook back in 2006 when everything happened. So, and of course that's Joe. Now it was really cool. In one of Courtney's videos, he explained how the name Joe is used to represent everything that the individual knows about love. And that's why everybody feels this love I project as this thing unfolds and then people are having to look at their own feelings about love, and then the program hits them again because it all connects to the mother, the Oedipus complex, the sexuality, you know. All right. No parameters in the never-ending story, friends. And when I see you next too, I will share more on parasites. I had a huge revelation today when I was sitting in a chair. And by the way, here's a red t-shirt on this chair. Our buddy Tracy, he has a gift for finding really cool stuff. This is a t-shirt. It's got the top 10 Chuck Norris things. And of course, that video is getting ready to be made too. Oh, good. We're on the last piece of paper. For real. Since 2005. The shadow government has had the ability to eliminate the God gene in people, and they can deliver it in a virus, whether it's the flu, you know, because it works really well like aerosolized, you know, put out in an aerosol form. So I aired this clip on Sophia's Emporium that now other people have gotten hip to, where there's this guy, you know, bragging about how they can eliminate the God gene in people because, you know, religious fundamentalists are a bunch of fruitcakes and they might blow up a tower, which is the biggest crock of shit that any of us have ever had to hear since 2001, right? But last thing I'm going to say tonight is that in 1987, which is the year my first daughter was born, I knew via the book The Planetary Commission what the year 1986 had to do with, and this tipping point between the forces of darkness and light, and so on and so forth. And in the decades that followed, between 87, 97, 07, they said it was the 10 times 10 thing as far as how much information and data that we take in and upload and download and process and all those computer terms, right? But it's 2017 now, and so we have a full 30-year cycle. And of course, that breaks down to the Trinity, the number 3. And that is the end of my remote viewing session for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you learned one thing, it was worth your time and my time. And like I said, I'm so in appreciation for this journey. And I just want you guys to know how much I do love you and care about you. So let me stop that share or start it or do whatever I'm doing. I won't know until I get off air how this worked out. But you know what? It wouldn't matter how it worked out, because just me taking the initiative to go through these steps and do it with a true heart, you see from the minute it started, it went out into the universe, and it's going to immediately return and create reality for us here. So with that, I want to say peace, love, and light for the big yellow house on the third cosmic ray in Suz's world. And I here again encourage you all to claim your birthright and create your world. And we'll see each other on the other side. All right. I think I'm done. And